Hello, everybody. So today we are starting really our second book lesson or homework assignment. But this is going to be our first one that's really getting into like new science content that you might not know and you're going to be learning today. So when we do have an assignment that is in our textbook, we're going to be writing these out. You're going to need to put this either on loose leaf paper or a notebook. We will not be accepting if you're turning it in on a Google Doc. We are looking that you're actually writing these ones out. Yeah, by hand, you can do this. We're doing plenty of stuff on the computer this year. But what you're needing to do is, so if you have a notebook, if you want to keep maybe the first 10 to 15 pages for bell work for this year, that should be more than enough. And then you can go ahead and start just writing your notes right in after that. And then you'll just take a picture of them when you're done and upload those to Google Classroom. If you don't have a notebook or loose leaf paper, please talk to your science teacher the next day that you have class so that we can get you either loose leaf paper or we can get you a notebook. We do have some extras. Or if you're like, well, I'm an entirely virtual student, well, talk with your science teacher or call the office, either or, so that we can get a notebook to you or have one that can get picked up by someone for you. There's extra ones in the office. I have some extra ones. Your science teacher has extra ones. So we will help you get those ones. But this is how we'll be going for our book lessons this year. So first things to do is you're likely going to be told in science class that we're doing chapter 1, lesson 1. So something like that, like chapter this, lesson this. So you're going to write that down. You might know what the title is. Otherwise, we'll grab that when we get to the book. The big things, though, are to put your name. My name's Mr. Roddick. Please put your actual name. When this assignment's due, and then what hour you have science class. And then at the very top, write down that chapter 1, lesson 1, and what the title is. Now, I always have students are like, what page is it on? I'm not actually going to tell you the page because, one, if you have a paper textbook, you can look at the bottom and you can see it says that you're in chapter 1, lesson 1, or chapter 12, lesson 2, so you can just flip back and forth. Or when you log in, so go to that important information email, do not delete. Use the link at the top and then use the username and password that are on that email. Remember, it's not linked to your school account. You'll log into the book. You'll have to click launch, but then it looks like this. When you get here, you'll click on the ebook. And then I'm not going to tell you the page because I want you guys to be able to get this yourself. So what you can do is go over to the contents. It's in the upper left-hand corner. So you should remember learning about this when we did our very first book assignment. We're going to go where it says 1, describing motion, and click the drop down. And this is lesson 1, position and motion. So that's how I knew this was called position and motion. And so I wrote that. Now, the next thing, if you don't remember, or if you're like needing a refresher here, we're going to write down all the vocab because we're going to define that. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Most of it is on your vocab packet for this chapter. I wonder why. Interesting. Okay, but first things first, take a minute to write all of those down at the top of your paper. I would probably leave one line underneath each one so that you have enough space as you come across them. But you want your paper then to look something like this. Pause this video if you need to so you can go ahead and do that. So then now you should be back with me. And the next thing that we want to do is go to the very end of the chapter and let's preview the questions that we're going to need to be answering for homework. Some little reminders. If you want to zoom in, it's kind of in this upper mid right-hand area that you can zoom in on the text. There is also the audio icon, so my little bar here is covering it. That's in the lower left, so you can either leave the audio icons on, and if you want this read to you, go for it, or you can switch them off if they're in your way. And these are the questions we're going to need to answer. So use vocabulary. Define motion in your own words. Note it says your own words, not Google's. Use your own words. The difference between the initial position and the final position of an object is its blank. Understand key concepts. Explain why a description of position depends on a reference point. To describe a position in more than one dimension, you must use more than one displacement, reference point, reference direction, or type of motion. 5, if you walk 2 kilometers from your house to a store and then back home, what is your displacement? Interpret graphs. Interpret using 12 as the reference point. How can you tell that the hands of the clock on the right have moved from their previous position shown on the left? And then summarize, copy and fill in the graphic organizer below to identify the 3 things that must be included in the description of position. So there they are. Critical thinking, compare. Relative to some reference points, your nose is in motion when you run. Compared to others, it's not in motion. Give one example of each. Now, you probably don't want to write down all of those questions right now. You want to make sure you have enough space for them, but you could definitely write down the very first one. And reminder, you don't need to write it word for word. I mean, number 1, I don't know how much more you can simplify to find motion in your own words, so you might need to write it out. But some of these other ones, like number 8, compare relative to some reference points, your nose is in motion when you run, compared to others, it's not. You could just say number 8, relative to reference point, nose is in motion, relative to others, not in motion. You could sum it up like that, and that would be okay. But then your answer should be in a full sentence, unless it's like number 2 here and it's filling out or just finishing off a sentence, that's okay. So once you've got these, you're going to go back to the beginning and start the assignment. Now, why on earth are we doing these book assignments? This is the reason. We need to get content from somewhere so we can help understand what we're going to do when we do an activity in class or when we look at data or other different activities in class. It doesn't mean that every single day we do a homework assignment, we will have a lab the next day. But in general, we try and put a number of activities to kind of pair up with the readings we've done. Sometimes we have like 2 readings that equal 1 larger lab. So we need to have that though. So if you're coming to class and you're like, I didn't do the book readings, we might have to be like, you need to do the book readings before you can do the fun activity. Because if you don't know the information behind it, how do you know what you're doing in that activity? So make sure you're getting these done. When you're done with them, then take a picture and turn them in. Make sure that it's readable on your page. So you might have to get better lighting in your room or take like a picture of smaller chunks of the page to send in so that we can read it and make sure you've got that. But make sure to get this turned in. Finish it. We want to see what you've learned. We're not doing this like it's busy work. We want to make sure you've learned something and that it's meaningful. Also, this is paper because, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, we do have different assignments throughout the unit that we have that you might want to use a paper copy of something because you'll be on a locked screen. I'm just saying, your paper copy is probably going to be a little more valuable to you than any document copy. Anywho, we're not looking for a document copy coming in unless you're taking pictures of all of your document. You want to put it on a Google Doc just for organization. I've had a few people do that, like with flipbooks. Looked adorable. Totally fine there. But please do handwrite this because we're doing enough electronic stuff right now. This we can do handwritten. So let your teacher know if you have any questions. Otherwise, good luck and have a great day. We're learning our first bit of content today.